Would you consider your outdoor equipment to be sustainable? Do you know how much effort is required for a manufacturer to be compliant with regards to sustainability? Well, if you don't know these answers, maybe you are in the right place, because today we're going to present you the outcomes of our mapping of sustainability regulations for sporting goods manufacturers, a project we developed with and for Scott Sport. Good morning, Scott team. Good morning, scientific committee. Good morning, audience here and from remote. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. First and foremost, I'd like to introduce you the team who performed this project. 4 diverse backgrounds, but with a common interest towards sustainability and shared passion for Scott's products. Starting from myself, Flavio Squillante from Italy. Then we'll have Živa Lavrins from Slovenia, Aditya Narayan from India, and in conclusion, Dominic Brook from UK. Here also a brief overview of what we're gonna go through, what we're gonna cover today, which is the summary of our 9-month journey that we summarized into 4 main chapters. To begin with, a very brief introduction to give a little bit of context in terms of who our client is, how it is involved into sustainability, and why they decided to run this project. Secondly, the methodology to explain you the steps and how we created our framework and the steps we went through to finalize the deliverables. Then an overview of the main findings we achieved throughout our mapping. And finally, the conclusions we derived from the data and the recommendations we put forward in our report. So if I can start, if everything's clear so far, I would like to start with a very brief introduction of who is our client. Scott is a very renowned company founded back in 1958 in US by Ed Scott, who was the inventor of the first ski poles made of aluminum. The revolutions and the contributions to the sport industry didn't stop to the skiing, as a sport discipline, but expanded also elsewhere. And nowadays they are divided and classified according to main 4 business units or sports universes, which are winter sports, biking, motorsports, and running. In the late 70s, they moved the headquarters in Givisiez, here in Switzerland, where in 2019, they also renovated entirely the building to embed a more sustainable approach, which is very embedded and strongly embedded in the corporate values, such as, especially in terms of energy supply and choice of materials, as you can see from the picture here. This also gives us the perfect link for the approach that the company has towards sustainability. And our analysis had followed a twofold approach, both internally or company-wise and externally or industry-wise. Internally, Scott developed 2 years ago a corporate social responsibility program called Resource by Scott, which embraces all the initiatives, several initiatives that they run under the CSR scope. And it also works as a label for the most sustainable products they manufacture. Industry-wise, they are co-signatory of the Responsible Sport Initiative, which is the code of conduct promoted by the World Federation of Sporting Goods Industry. But the third point that I would like to highlight to you is also the perfect kick and the perfect assist for our project, which was an initiative the compliance department ran previously with regards to the mapping of chemical substances and the thresholds allowed by regulations in any products manufactured by Scott. Considering the evolving market needs and the variety of the offering produced by Scott, the company decided to expand the scope of this initiative beyond chemicals, and therefore they asked us to map any potential information with regards to sustainability regulations that could impact any Scott product categories or the whole outdoor industry, focusing primarily on Europe.
So let's focus now let's have a look at the methodology part of it. Considering the high level of the technicalities of the scope of the project, we had to first build our knowledge around the sustainability field as well as what we're supposed to be doing. We relied on the guidance from Scott, first of all, as well as we would be doing then attending the webinars and doing dedicated readings, finding academic articles online. In the second phase, we would then do the deep dive into the topic. So we would be doing more of a streamlining the information that we would find provided by the other sporting goods manufacturers. We would be also finding the policymakers and what they have to say, as well as the labels and certifications providers, plus global and continental federations. To continue, we would also leverage on the AISTS network, and we would be performing a high-quality interviews with experts on the field to just know more what is coming up in the sustainability regulations. In the third phase, we would then structure our informations, and it would be paneling down information into 4 different layers. We would be considering we structure the database considering on the 4 layers. It would be tools, labels and certifications, regulations, as well as trends. It would each and every one of those, as I'm going to explain you later, it has a certain specific classification, which then helped us to map all of the other sustainability regulations. In the final step, we would be in a close contact with Scott client. We would be exchanging what we were doing, and we would be listening to the feedback, and which would help us then to finalize the structure of the database, as well as that phase would include searching for more and more data to be filling up the database to be coming to the overall of 110 mapped sustainable elements that we would then put, as said before, down to the 4 layers. The first one, it would be the 25 tools, which would be the self or third-party assessments. It would help companies self-assess third-party assessments to see where they are and measuring quantifiable KPIs, key performance indicators. We also mapped 32 labels and certifications, which would be from the certified bodies. It would be requirements, what a company needs to have to get a certain label. We would also map 17 regulations, which are the national or regional enforceable laws, as well as we would be going to the trends, and there was 36 trends that we would map. It would be hot topics on the sustainability field, what is coming up, and where the industry is going. To finalize, to have a look at what we've done, you can see on the right-hand side, it's a structured database, tools, labels, regulations, trends, as said before. And all the database, as you can see, has a similar structure. So it is very easy to read, and it has a coherent, thank you. On the left-hand side, you can see the manual that we provided to the Scott. So for them to be able to maintain the database. So we included what our recommendations are, as well as what the main sources of information for us would be to find the things to put it in the database.
So I'm going to be talking about the findings and results during this exercise. We, as Ziva correctly mentioned, we managed to identify 110 elements, and we try to analyze further as to its applicability towards not just Scott internally, but externally as well. Coming to the main drivers, first we're looking at the geographical application. Basically, where to see that these 110 elements are applicable in which region. The scope that we discussed initially was to focus in Europe, and we can see that in the regulations that we've mapped, 17 of them are just only for Europe, and probably even the trends, a higher percentage of them are applicable towards Europe. But then, as and when we deep dived and analyzed these tools and labels and certifications, we figured that they have a high applicability, not just within Europe, but globally as well. As we can see, labels and certifications, 90% of them, 90% of the elements mapped are applicable globally. Moving on to the product category. Scott has a diverse range of products. We do know that, not just outdoor equipment, but apparels, winter sport, you name it. We needed to see whether these 110 elements apply not just within components, not just within raw materials, not just within product groups, but company-wide. And we can see that 65% of the elements that we have mapped are applicable on a company-wide basis. Moving on to the insights, speaking of tools, 40% of them that we mapped are applicable towards transparency and traceability. There are some tools that we mapped, which probably track environmental impact or probably temperature control. These tools are accessible through a subscription model, which is mostly their business, the subscription model, which is mostly their way of business, but there are some tools that are free as well. Moving on to labels and certification, 50% of them require a membership. These are private bodies or NGOs who provide various labels, that is different tiers or levels, or certifications which are applicable in the same way. Regulations. EU's top priority is the environment. If you talk about other regions, EU stands up when it comes to the environment, not just at a regional level, but at a country level as well. At a regional level, if we speak about it, we can talk about the EU Green Deal, which focuses on carbon neutrality. And at a country level, if we speak about regulations, the French anti-waste law comes to mind, where they have a lot of policies in place for managing waste, not just raw materials, but moving forward from the manufacturing ladder. Trends. As we went by trends, the 36 trends that we mapped, there were some that didn't show a lot of pattern, but there were two things that stood out. One was the adoption of a circular business model, and the second was a lot of collaborations for initiatives. For example, AISTS, a known sport manufacturer, has joined the Renewable Energy 100 group to pledge for using renewable energy at a higher level. And also there is the EU Energy Group as well, the Energy Union rather, which is a platform for companies to come together, pledging various initiatives in their production schemes of things.
So on top of the insights that Ali's provided, we've come away with 3 main takeaways as well as 3 recommendations to maximize use of the database. The first takeaway is that laws and regulations vary immensely. So national governing bodies set their own laws and regulations to do with sustainability. However, countries often have different SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. So the strictness surrounding these regulations varies as well. So the EU sets its own laws and regulations as well as their member countries. Any EU member countries have to adhere to the EU base level laws and regulations. Anything they want to impose past that is their prerogative. Non-EU states, however, are free to set their own, but we've often found that they will set similar regulations according to the EU, if not exactly the same. This brought us to our second takeaway, is that the outdoor industry encompasses a litany of materials. So materials used vary from woods, metals, bioplastics, all the way through to chemical coatings. So this means that there's laws and regulations for each of these materials at each individual markets, at each individual country. This is an incredibly daunting task for a commercial business, such as Scott, to try and remain compliant within each individual market for each individual material. Another issue is that when a law is passed at a governmental level, so for example, a country wants to offset their carbon footprint by about 30%. Often they will only describe the ends, as in 30%, rather than the means by which to attain that goal. So it is then the commercial business's responsibility to find the laws and regulations in order to remain compliant within that specific market, which often aren't there when a new law comes to pass. This then brought us to our third takeaway, is that the role of NGOs in commercial product sustainability is increasing. So the gap left by governments in the detailed laws and regulations to do with specific materials is being filled by individual service providers and NGOs. Global trends are showing us that consumer habits are moving towards being more responsible and sustainability orientated. So the NGOs seek to exploit this by partnering with commercial businesses in order to make their products more appealing to consumers. They'll offer services such as B2B consultation on manufacturing processes, all the way through to end product labeling. Some labels that you might recognize are the fair trade label, which isn't just exclusive for hard goods, but also is in multiple other industries, such as food labels. So again, these labels then become more appealing, and by the commercial businesses partnering with these professional services, the onus is taken off of them to remain compliant, as the certifications and labels provided by these service providers cover the laws and regulations on a governmental basis and make it a lot more easy for commercial businesses to stay compliant within Europe. This then brought us to our recommendations. So the first is that the database itself needs to be updated. This can be done through an automated CRM system, for example, which draws data from different sources of information, such as newsletters and academic papers, as well as others. We have compiled the data manually. So an alternative is to carry on with this process. We've also provided a manual for navigation of the database, which helps the end user not only use the database itself, but has the sources of information that we've used to compile the data. The second recommendation is that the database can be expanded to other departments of SCOT itself. So we've provided this unique structure, which we believe can be applied to other departments of SCOT to fully maximize and streamline the supply chain and manufacturing process in order to reach their sustainability goals. And finally, partnering with the professional services, but more so than they already do. So the database itself is compiled of free to access information. On top of the services that SCOT already works with, professional services, we have outlined some more that we believe can truly help SCOT get that overall holistic view of sustainability trends throughout Europe, and again, helping them to become compliant throughout Europe. The sporting industry has recognized that there is a need to act more responsibly and with a more sustainability-minded approach. The consumer habits that have driven businesses to become more competitive in order to reach these responsibility and sustainability goals. We believe that the way forward is to adopt a holistic, sustainable approach and also cooperate across industry in order to achieve overall sustainability. Our database will help SCOT innovate, compete, and dominate the outdoor sporting goods industry for years to come. We'd like to thank SCOT for the opportunity to help them maintain their leading position as a sustainable manufacturer. We'd also like to thank AISTS, UNO, and EPFL for the opportunity to work together as this team. Thank you, and we welcome any questions.